on? What's up, everybody? We have another edition of White Belt MMA interviews, and then we have Pete Barrett on the show, who's ready to fight Chase Hooper on December 12th at UFC 256. How you doing, Pete? How's training going? How's training camp been going? And yeah.
And this has been a great training camp. Everything's been going great. You know, the closer we get to the fight, the crazier things get. You know, we're kind of getting down to the minute and making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted gets crazy. So today's been a hectic day. USADA stopped by earlier, kind of threw a huge wrench in my plan because once USADA gets a hold of you, they can't leave you until they get all their specimens that they need. And beginning to end, it's like a 2-hour process from like. So when he walks in, you know, once we see each other, I can't leave his view. And we got to go through a sample of whatever they've decided, which today was urine, which is easy. But then we have to go through all this paperwork, all the supplements I've taken, all the declarations, all the forms, make sure everything's up to date. And just a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I mean,
to
it
be
sounds
honest
like
with
it.
you.
Yeah. I mean, like, especially I've been hearing like a bunch of stories too that like fighters have to like legitimately fill out where they're going to be at. Is it every day or is it every week that they have to fill out like that paperwork?
So quarterly, we have to upload our schedules to an app for USADA. So my next one's coming up. I think I have to have it done by mid-December. So, you know, if I was on top of shit, I'd get it done right away. But I'll probably wait till the last day when I get home from Vegas and then fill it out then.
There you go, bro. There you go. But it's all right. I mean, you're still getting it done, so that's what matters, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So let's go back to the Chase Hooper fight. So yeah, I mean, if you don't mind just telling us, like, when did you receive the call, like that the UFC offered you Chase Hooper? And then was it one of those situations that you're like, yeah, of course, right away, Chase Hooper is a big name, especially if I get the win over Chase Hooper, like it's just gonna rise my stock this much more. So was it that or?
Yeah, I mean, so I had a medical suspension for my last fight, pending, you know, a doctor signing off on everything being healed appropriately. So that was like a 10-week ordeal from the time that I fought to the time that I got cleared. So the way it worked out is I got cleared on a Wednesday and we had an email on Thursday night saying just Peter, like Chase Hooper, December 12th, location to be determined. Is Peter in, yes or no? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. That's a great fight. You know, he just, you know, I just had just watched his previous fight with Caceres and, I mean, he made Alex look like a world-class striker, and not to rag on him at all, but you know, he's a journeyman in the UFC, which is an accomplishment in its own feat. But you know, he's not Calvin Kattar, he's not, you know, Peter Yan, he's not, you know, he's not this big guy. Like he's a mid-level guy in the UFC, and Chase made him look like one of the elites. So you know, I hit a lot harder, I'm a lot more accurate. And I think it's a great fight.
Yeah, definitely. And then like in camp too, especially with Chase, like game revolves a bunch around jujitsu. Have you just been working around like a lot on your ground game, or has it kind of been just kind of like it's just another opponent? I'm just gonna keep doing me, keep like what's kind of helped me get to the dance. I'm gonna continue to do in this next fight, or you kind of had to kind of game plan for Hooper.
So we definitely game plan for all of our opponents, or all of my opponents, and I've been with Joe Lauzon like 3 times a week, working specific situations where we feel, or where he felt Chase would have the upper hand. So we're going over leg defenses, choke defenses, people trying to pull your back from standing, scraping them off the cage. I mean, Joe's a wizard on the ground. So, you know, when we get a name, I let Joe create the game plan for how we're going to attack the grappling portion of the camp and how we're going to approach that game plan wise. And, you know, albeit I lost to Yusuf Zalal, Joe was behind everything as far as my jiu-jitsu was concerned. And I took a whole round fighting that kid off my neck, off my back, which was a huge victory. I mean, a small victory within a loss, but to be able to retain and use the stuff that we had worked on it was actually only like 2 or 3 weeks when we got the notification on him. But being able to retain what we went over and then use it in the fight, which was a huge, you know, accolade to have been able to do that. Usually you work on things in one camp and you see him in the next fight, not that fight. So Joe's been navigating everything for me. We've been taking videos, watching videos, brainstorming on things. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? If we go this way, where do you go? If you go this way, where do you go? Um, so he's gotten me familiar in all the situations where we might be in danger. And it was just last week where Joe's like, "Hey, where do you want to focus today?" I said, "Joe, I want a pop quiz. Let's go through all the situations. Let's see, you know, I want you to watch. I don't want you to coach, and I want you to let me know where I'm making mistakes." And he said if I like, it was like 90% of everything I did was right. There were a couple things that we needed to tweak and a couple things that we changed, but yeah, he takes care of the ground stuff for
Yeah.
sure.
That's awesome. Especially like I give Joe Lauzon so much credit too, because especially like I mean, you can tell me otherwise, but I feel like in terms of like Massachusetts MMA, like you haven't had like this one big school that like legitimately everybody can go to and get like MMA sparring or get like like get some like great advice from someone that's been there, like a future Hall of Famer. And I mean, I don't know if you would think the same way that like he's kind of changed the way Massachusetts MMA is kind of evolving a little bit more because I feel like before people kind of had to like jump from gyms to gyms, but now they can kind of go just to one source, work on the jujitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I wouldn't call Lausanne's like a super camp yet, like an
Mm-hmm.
ATT would be, where you have everything in one hot, like under one roof.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe's definitely done a really good job about, you know, recruiting people for team training, making sure that he's taking care of his fighters, and by taking care of his fighters, just taking care of everybody else by making sure there's kind of like an open door policy. As long as he doesn't have an issue with you and you don't have an issue with any of his fighters, you're pretty much welcome to show up on Saturdays. And keep in mind, this is all pre-corona, pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there's no massive training sessions anywhere. Everybody's kind of like in small groups behind closed doors. But yeah, I mean, I love the work that I get over there. Gyms around here kind of like they sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're cold. So
Mm-hmm.
for a while, Sityodtong was the big place, and that's my Muay Thai academy. Monday nights and Saturdays were crazy there for sparring. Junico, which is still around, but not so much in the MMA game anymore. But for a while, we had huge team trainings over there. Um, but Joe's been doing a good job about staying consistent and keeping a lot of good guys under the roof over there.
Yeah, definitely. And like not to put you on the spot too, but like I know you kind of said that like Lauzon MMA isn't still like a super camp, like let's say compared to ATT and all that. But like let's say in a couple of years, what do you think Massachusetts MMA like would have to do to kind of become like that like spot like the way Florida is that like a bunch of fighters go and train over there and then like you would have big names coming to Massachusetts. Because I feel like for the most part, Massachusetts has been mostly like a boxing, kind of striking town. So in terms of getting the whole game in and like being that new hotspot like Florida or like California would be, what do you think it would like have to entail?
Well, Joe Lozon's is they're actually moving locations. They're opening the new place. They're closing this place and opening a new place in January, which is double the mat space. So I haven't seen it yet. I've had conversations with him about it, but it's bigger, it's better. There's more room. He's gonna, Joe does everything right. He's a wizard in everything that he does, and he does it the right way. There's no shortcuts taken. So I can only imagine what he's got up his sleeve for this new place, considering how much larger it is than what he has now. So I mean, you would need to make a super camp. You would need a vetted strength and conditioning coach. Joe's got the jujitsu. He's got Danny Savory that runs the gi program, and he's a beast. Um, as far as striking is concerned, he's got Steve Mays over there, who's a great boxing coach, great boxing trainer. And he's got some of his up and comers teaching the classes, to the common people. But um, you know, the, the the pieces are already there. I think it's just putting the puzzle together.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah. Because like, I've kind of come across like a bunch of MMA fighters like around in the area and everything like that, and like it's one of those things that like I've always just heard them jump from gym to gyms. Like not everything will be under one roof. So like if we in Massachusetts ever gets to that point that they can go to like let's say Lauzon MMA and then like they can all do that in one roof, that'll be awesome. I feel like it'll just if anything save them more time, save them the headaches of trying to like figure out what best team fits them and yeah.
Yeah, well, so it's like all these. I mean, and there's no shortage of MMA schools in Massachusetts or
Mm-hmm.
in New England, and it's like coaches will keep their guys within their walls until they feel like they're ready or they've kind of outgrown the area. Then it's like, all right, now you need to go cross train. I'm going to talk to so and so. We're going to get you up at Lauzon's on Saturdays for sparring. Like, don't go with anyone that you don't like. Don't go with anyone that might hurt you. Don't go with anyone you don't trust. So like, there's a little bit of like accountability on yourself when you go into new situations like that. You don't want to just go in there and be like, I don't know who this guy is. Let's spar with him. Could be me. It could be Rob. It could be Calvin. And if you don't know any better and you're like, oh, I've had one amateur MMA fight, I'm a bad motherfucker. And then you get in there with someone who's been boxing and kickboxing and doing jiu-jitsu for 10 plus years. Like you're like, there's, you know what I'm trying to say? Like
Yeah.
it's not that we ever do that to anybody intentionally, but it can happen. I mean, point in case, like, Joe had reached out to me years ago when he was fighting Southpaw, and I hadn't established that relationship with him yet. I hadn't been cross training with him yet. His school kind of had a reputation for being a really tough school. And, my coaches at the time said, we don't really feel comfortable sending you over there. We don't know how you're going to get treated. You could just be a body that he's looking to get a lot of work out of, or you could go over there and be one of his best training partners. We don't really know, but we need to save your brain for you. Mm-hmm. So, there's just like a level of vetting. You got to do your due diligence before you commit to going to a bigger school like that. But I feel like I've lost track of the question.
In terms of
what we would need, if we were to do it right, Joe would need to buy like a multifamily house and rent out rooms to have people come in so they have somewhere to stay, or like buy a multifamily and just put up fighters over there or something, which hasn't happened yet, but maybe that's talks down the road. Who knows? Joe's a really smart guy, and if you look to the industry, you can see things. You can see people like what Uriah has done with Team Alpha Male and the Ultimate Fitness Training Center. Like, it's it's like a destination training center in NorCal. It's kind of like people go to Thailand to go learn Muay Thai. A lot of fighters that are coming out of areas that don't have the best training move to Sacramento. They move to these gyms, the ATT down in Florida. So one of the things that we don't have necessarily set up would be like housing. And again, that's just, if they decide that that's the direction they want to go in, find a multifamily house where you can put up guys and whatnot.
100%. And I feel like kind of like one thing that kind of hurts us is the weather around here. Like, I mean, you see California, Florida, obviously you got your beaches, everything. And then you come here and it's like one day is 70 degrees and the next day it's like you're freezing cold. So
dude, it snowed last week and it was 65 degrees today.
Yeah, dude, it makes no sense.
I mean, the only place where I've seen weather more unpredictable than New England is when I lived in Denver.
Really?
Oh, dude, Denver, you could have 6 inches by 9 a.m. and it'd be 70 by 4 p.m.
That's insane, and especially that you're up in altitude and everything like that. So, like, yeah, you were in Denver. So, did you go for? I know you said you went to college in Colorado, right? And then you started your MMA career over there. So, like, how did that come about? Like, was it one of those things that you were going for? I mean, you were studying in school for something that, like, let's say, like business or communications or whatever you were trying to do, and then like you ran into someone that was like, "Yo, you should definitely try to get into this," or was it kind of one of those things that you were just always a fan of?
Always a fan. I wrestled all through high school. I graduated in 2005, so that was like Ultimate Fighter season 1, 2, and 3 were like huge back around that time, and it was like a pipe dream. I went to college. I played rugby. I got sick and tired of rugby, and one of my buddies was like, "Hey, there's this hot shot downtown who teaches Muay Thai. Like, we should go check this kid out." It was Brandon Thatch. He's a UFC veteran. Doesn't fight anymore. He's got some complications with his neck from fighting, but like, he's the one that really whet my appetite on it. They noticed real quick that I had some wrestling pedigree behind me from wrestling in high school, and they started bringing me in to work with their fighters during their fight team to give them the wall work, to give them the wrestling looks. And one thing led to another. After I moved home, I decided I wanted to fight, and the rest is history, really.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And you fought for like local promotions like Cage Titans and CES and everything like that. So like in terms of like coming up on the regional scene though, like how would you rate those shows? Like, do you think they like take care of the fighters? Like, honestly, in terms of like promoting their fighters and then kind of making sure they're like put in the right places for, like, let's say big promotions like UFC and Bellator takes notice and signs them?
Yeah, I would say the only promotion that rivals what I've experienced at the UFC is Cage Titans. And let me also say that I've never fought for LFA. I know the guys that ran RFA, um, but those were all in like back then. We didn't think it was like the pioneering days, but it still was the pioneering days. So now, like Mike Pulver, the owner of Cage Titans, he's we've had I think 4 or 5 guys get up to the UFC at this point, and he's always been, you know, in someone's corner, acting as a manager, a part of it. So when he goes to these UFC events, when he goes to the Contender Series, this dude remembers everything. Like he said, okay, the UFC does it like this, I'm gonna do it like this. They do it like that, I'm gonna do it like that. The UFC has blue shirts, so if you need anything, you know, you ask a guy in a blue shirt. Mike's got red shirts, so if you need anything at the Cage Titan show, you go to a red shirt. If you need this, you go to that guy. If you need this, you go to that guy. And he's really mimicked and set up the infrastructure to really grow the promotion and allow the fighters to feel like they're taken care of, because that's why he got into it. He had fought and realized what a shit show it was. It was like skeezy used car salesmen that weren't paying fighters, like making money, disappearing for a year, coming back, doing another show, disappearing. He's like, fuck this. I can do this so much better than these guys. And Cage Titans was born. In every show, he does something better. He's always improving. Like, you never have to worry about getting paid. You never have, like, if something happens and your fight falls off, if you don't have your tickets in on fight night, he's not going to charge you for the tickets you didn't return, as long as you can get them back and those people didn't show up. And he's very good about giving you his word on a handshake and sticking to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you know, has it bit him in the ass a few times? Probably. But at the end of the day, he's treating the new fighters just like he treats his veteran fighters. And it's kind of refreshing to see that.
And that's awesome, man. And especially like you spending so much time in Cage Titans, and then you eventually get that call from the UFC. So when you get that call from the UFC, like what was the feeling like? Was it one of those that like you kind of always knew you're like, it was going to happen like one day and I'm just going to be like nonchalant about it? Or was it one of those that you're like, dude, Contender Series, this is my chance. Like, here we go.
It was a combination of both. You know,
Yeah.
the 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, 8-0. You know, when am I getting the call? When am I getting the call? When am I getting the call? 8-1. Shit, maybe I'm losing it. 8-2. Shit, maybe I'm losing it. 9-2. Okay, we're back. You know, like I had some personal things going on that reflected into my fighting. That kind of put me to a point where I thought, man, maybe this isn't going to happen. But when we got the call for the Contender, my coach, Mike, my manager, like, they didn't even ask me. They were like, yes. They're like, do you want to know who we're offering this? No, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You could put kids. And nobody told me that. I was like, whatever, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the rest was history. But yeah, I mean, to one point in my career, I'm like, where's the phone call? And the next 6 fights were kind of like, did I lose my opportunity? And, you know, we stayed the course, we stayed disciplined for the most part. I had people around me pushing me, Peter, keep your head to the, you know, keep your nose down, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. There were points where I didn't believe in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Pulver called me. He said, listen, we're doing this. This is the plan. We're going to get you on the Contender Series. We're going to Vegas for this kid, Richie Santiago, was fighting on the episode 2 of the season that I fought on. I got an introduction with Sean Shelby, put a face to a name. And by the end of the summer, I was fighting on the 10th week.
Mm-hmm.
So if it weren't for Mike Pulver, I might not be talking to you today.
Oh, that's crazy. And that's awesome. And it really kind of goes to like how, like, you know, in terms of like, let's say like everyone's dream, like my dream is to like broadcast and like legitimately tell the stories of like men's and women just like you in the UFC or other promotions and everything like that. Or like, let's say other people's dreams or everything like that. You always need people like along the way that kind of keep pushing you. Cause I feel like if you kind of try to do it by yourself, it's kind of like your mind kind of takes over, you know what I mean?
Oh, most definitely. And it's easy to get inside your own head and become your own worst enemy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like, that just speaks volumes. Like Mike Pulver through Cage Titans did do that for me, and he would do it for any of his other fighters as well.
Mhm.
which is just speaks volumes about the type of person he is.
Mhm. Definitely, brother. Definitely. So yeah, man. So like, just the last thing. I mean, you kind of answered a little bit too, but like kind of just to end the interview. So like, let's say it can up and coming fighter is like watching this right now, and then he's looking at you for inspiration, especially in the local scene here in Massachusetts. Like, let's say they were watching this, and then they were looking for any type of advice, whether it be on the mindset type of aspect of like fighting, or in terms of just the in the cage type of aspect. Like, what advice would you give an up and coming fighter coming up?
So all things considered,
Yeah.
with Corona going on right now, and fights not being a sure thing unless you travel to the South or out to the Midwest or out to the West Coast. Not even the
Mhm.
West Coast. Screw that. California's more locked up than we are. But if you go down south, you can get fights. If you go to the Midwest, you can get fights. Um, that being said, because we're in a semi-lockdown state, go train with team. Reach out to teams that you want to train with that you're not a part of. Reach out to trainers that you want to learn from that you're not a regular student of. Like, everybody's hurting right now, and if you hit someone up and you send them a message and say, "Hey, listen, man, I loved what you do with your fighters. I love the way they perform. I would love to come over and maybe get some one-on-one time with you. Take some privates. Really like just be in an environment where that I'm not used to being in and seeing the way you guys do things, so I can maybe take one or two things back to my camp and improve." Like there's no one's fighting, so like
Mhm.
go find your arch enemy and be like, "Hey, dude, we're not guaranteed to have a fight for maybe another year or so, depending on how this election finishes up, what January looks like, if the second wave or third
Mhm.
wave, however you want to call it, really comes through this winter." Um, get out of your comfort zone and go train with people that you normally wouldn't be allowed to train with, because we're in a fucking pandemic, man. The rules are off. Go train with people that you don't get to train with. Go find someone that does something really well and go learn from them.
Mhm.
Um, take advantage of this opportunity to get better. A lot of people will focus on the things that they really can't control. Like, fuck this. When am I going to fight? What's the point of training if I can't fight? Like, why even bother? Like, what do you mean? Like, you have this great opportunity to go get better. You could improve tenfold over this next 6 months of disciplined training than you would over the next 2 years if you were fighting every 10 weeks.
Mhm.
So it's like, you know, put your nose down, get to work, get in shape, perfect all of your crafts. And if you need a book on mindset, I would say either look into Dr. Joe Dispenza or Tim Grover. And they're like opposite
Mhm.
ends of the spectrum. One guy's all about, you know, just getting the job done and always trying to be better. And that being Tim Grover. And then you've got guys like Dispenza, who's like, he's all about, you know, energy, vibration, frequencies, the law of attraction, putting out there what you want to have returned to you. So I think like a combination of manifesting what you want and working your ass off like a dog, you're going
Mhm.
to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, man. Well said. Well said. I mean, I'll definitely take a look into those 2 books too, especially because, like I said, it's like, especially my dream being so big too. It's like sometimes I need to remind myself, be like, yo, like, keep pushing, don't
Mhm.
stop, and, keep interviewing fighters, and then your day will come. So,
Yeah, I
excellent,
mean,
brother.
dude, like, just like there's this 14-year-old kid that I do interviews with. I've done a couple with him, and I
Mhm.
did one with him before my last fight. He was independent, and then the last time I interviewed with him, uh, MMA Island picked him up, and I
Oh,
think they're like
really?
a big conglomerate of independent guys that work together to put everything out over one platform or through one platform. And kid's like 14 years old. He's younger than my little. He's like the same age as
That's
my little brother,
insane.
and he's talking to some of the biggest people in the game right now. So it's
Yeah.
like anything's possible, dude. Right now, everything's possible.
Yeah, that's insane though. 14-year-old, it just like
Yeah,
I want to know what kind of went into his mindset at 14. He's like, you know what, dude? Like, I want to start interviewing fighters and then just go. Because I mean, I know when I was 14, I was probably just playing PlayStation, just
dude.
playing
I was
Madden
like
and everything like
smoking
that.
weed behind the junior high in the woods.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? Exactly. Playing in the like, dude. Just it's yeah.
yeah. Props, man. So yeah. So before we go, do you want to plug in your social medias just so like anybody watching this can follow you follow you and then watch your fight December 12th against Chase Hooper?
Yeah, man. So if you guys want to check me out, Instagram's where I'm most active. It's Slippery Pete 145. And if you guys are questioning whether you should watch 256, I guarantee I'm gonna be the first person to knock this kid out, get my hand raised, and walk home with 50 grand on top of it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Once again, Pete, thank you so much and have a good day, my man.
You too, dude.